Yes, sir. Happy Saturday, everyone. It is fight day. UFC Vegas number 47 is coming up here in 1 hour from now, and we are here for the next hour to break down this fight card, answer your questions, whatever you may have about your lineups here for today's UFC card. Of course, we are sponsored by Prize Picks. Talk about a little bit about Prize Picks later on in the show because, Pete, I will tell you, they added a prop for a fight time that really stuck out to me. And you know, me and Pete were texting back and forth before it, and you know, I'm a visual guy, Pete. Of course, joined by the fighter Pete Rogers Jr. I don't know if you're a visual guy like me, and I sent Pete the picture. Let's see here. I've got 5 different colors coded here of various fights. You know, one of my color codes for this one, Pete, is I believe there are 2 fights on today's card that are pivotal to our lineups and optimal. I mean, look, I very well could be wrong, but my feelings heading in this one, there's 2 fights you have to prioritize outside of the main event, obviously. That first one is a matchup, the Ultimate Fighter 29 alums, Trey Gore and Brian Battle. And the other one I think that we got to hit is Jason Witt versus Phil Rowe.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. What's up, everybody? We got fight day here, and locating these volatile matchups is going to be crucial for your DFS success. The Phil Rowe, Jason Witt one is just volatility at its finest. You have a guy who has tremendous takedown upside in Jason Witt, but with that has one of the worst chins we've seen. And even dating back to his regional scene, he just does not absorb damage well. His durability is pretty terrible. You have Phil Rowe with excellent striking, but his Achilles heel is his wrestling. And at times he accepts a position sometimes, and he likes to play from his back, from guard and all of that. And in MMA, he needs to be working back towards his feet. So I agree with you, man. I definitely think that Phil Rowe, Jason Witt, close your eyes, roster the fight, and just hope you have the correct fighter. But the lean is still Phil Rowe. I think that the length is going to be too much. But I honestly got to plenty of Jason Witt, and it hurt me to say so.
Yeah, the one thing is I talked to Jason Witt about 3 weeks ago, and I thought one of the more interesting thoughts that he had that he said to me was, you know, I asked him, I said, hey, did you go back and watch a lot of these Phil Rowe grappling contests that he's had over the past couple months? And he said no. And essentially paraphrasing what he said, he's like, my wrestling is going to neutralize that. And I mean, look, when you see that stare down between these 2 guys, the height and reach disadvantage that Jason Witt's got in this one, very noticeable. 5'10" versus 6'3", 70-inch reach in comparison to an 80-inch reach. I mean, I'm sure when we talk about reach disadvantages, we'll talk about Chidi Njokuani and Marc-Andre Barrios as well. But like, look, if Jason Witt is going to win this matchup, it is via takedowns. And we talked about this Thursday of he's a guy that if he is able to get these takedowns, he's potentially today's slate breaker.
Yeah, for sure. Locating the slate breakers is important, and hindsight's always 20/20. But prioritizing main event, co-main event underdogs is the first step. Following that is locating the guys with the best grappling upside, because you know DraftKings favors grapplers and strong wrestlers that can chain takedowns and control time together. 2 fighters that really fit that, I would say, is definitely Jason Witt and even Maximov to an extent, where they have tremendous grappling upside. They have a definite volatility surrounding them, but this is MMA and anything can happen. And that's why if you set your exposures correctly, if you start using the Fantasy Cruncher tool over on Awesemo.com, you can create groups and honestly take the headache out of it. And you can just allow the system to create the lineups for you. In a 20 max especially, you're going to have to get a little bit crazy. I found it very difficult this week, Jason, to leave salary on the table. Like normally I'm sitting there and I got no worries about leaving salary on the table. And this week, there are a lot of the upper 8,000 and 9,000 fighters that I'm like, all right, I want that. I want Puna Soriano. I want Alexis Davis. I want Sean Strickland. You know what I mean? Like there's so many people in that upper echelon that I want in my lineups, and you cannot have everybody. Unfortunately, you got Rachmanov, you got Bondar, and under 8,000, as you mentioned to me right before the show. It's like, all right, Pete, who the hell do you trust there? Or who do you even like? And it's like, goodness gracious, it's pretty ugly down there.
Yeah, over on DraftKings, one of the contests that I really love to play is I love to play those multiplier contests. Great way to build your bankroll, and you're going against a limited amount of people. And, so those are lineups that I'm hand building. And I started my hand build yesterday, and I was like, I remember I said, I was like, you know what? I'm going to build a core around Rachmaninoff and Bondar. And then I was like, oh man, this is not an easy roster construction. Then I'm like, okay, how do I put Sean Strickland in this lineup? And then I'm like, and then I found myself, I'm like, you're down in that John Castaneda and below category. I mean, like, yes, you could take, like, when I look at punt plays today, I would put John Castaneda as one of those punt plays. Danilo Marquez, I think, is another punt play. You made the case for Danilo Marquez on Thursday's show. Like, I don't want to get the Steven Peterson. The missing weight by 3 pounds is a big red flag to me. Because at that point, Pete, I mean, look, you've cut weight, for all your life. When you miss weight by 3 pounds, something's wrong there.
Yeah, I mean, something's definitely wrong. And just like in the matchup itself, you have to think that, a lot of fighters want an advantage, any advantage that they can have. And a grappling advantage for Steven Peterson, I guess, but it's not like Julian Arosa is a fish on the mat. Like, he's actually pretty skilled here. And I don't know if it's just being lethargic and lazy, but Steven Peterson has been extremely inconsistent in regards to making weight. He hasn't made weight in multiple fights now. It's ugly at the bottom, but Danilo Marquez is definitely worth a sprinkle in my opinion, just because the odds are completely blown out of proportion. I understand Jailton Almeida looks good. He looks physically imposing. He has, strong grappling, good takedowns. Positional awareness, as we mentioned on Thursday, definitely not up to par in my opinion. And going up against an accredited grappler in Danilo Marquez, whether people realize it or not, training under Damian Maia his entire life, being a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, a big guy, already been within the UFC. Maybe the octagon jitters will get to Jailton Almeida. And, outside of being an early finisher with a lot of submission wins, what happens if he can't submit, Danilo Marquez? How does it look? The only issue with that fight in general is just thinking and predicting that perhaps it's not an optimal fight. Like, trying to put your finger on which fights are going to be optimal. Like, maybe it does get stretched out and it becomes a close competitive fight, and neither one of them make it into the optimal lineup. That's my worry with some of these fights. And, whereas you might want to go a little contrarian and pivot to certain fighters that could definitely have high finishing upside or high DFS scoring.
Of course, appreciate everyone that's in here on a Saturday afternoon for the Awesemo MMA live before lock shows. We get you ready for UFC Vegas number 47. Of course, appreciate if you give us a thumbs up. And if you're, of course, not subscribed, also be sure to do that. Got a ton of great programming for you each and every day. Of course, coming up here later today, 5 o'clock Eastern time, we got NBA Deeper Dive and get you ready for tonight's NBA slate, which I'll be paying attention to, because using some of those DK tickets to try to win some tickets into next week's big UFC 271 GPP. Of course, if you're not a member of Awesemo Plus, we'll get a little peek what's behind the paywall. Today's free premium data and tools, NBA player projections, NHL player rankings, and also MMA fighter rankings. And of course, we always have a giveaway going on, our monthly podcast giveaway. Head over to any of the Awesemo channels. Hey, you know what? Just for us, head that Awesemo MMA podcast channel. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a 5-star review with your Awesemo username or Twitter handle. You'll be entered to win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. And I've been using all the tools that we have over Awesemo today, especially with my 20 max. I will tell you, Pete, in my 20 max, there were only 2 fighters I did not get to. And as I look at one of my color codes, it says no thanks. And those 2 fighters are Sam Alvey and Malcolm Gordon.
I can't disagree with you there. I mean, the Malcolm Gordon one's interesting because he's facing a guy who's making his UFC debut. I just don't think that Malcolm Gordon is UFC level. So I'm with you on the no thanks. Sam Alvey, winless in his past 6 or 7 or whatever it is. So facing a prospect who does have some durability questions, definitely a no thanks for me as well. But man, you got to get desperate, on this card, I would imagine. And that's why I think like under 8,000, that's where a a fight between Brian Battle and Tresean Gore, you will have some people taking a shot on Brian Battle just because he has already competed in the UFC and he is the Ultimate Fighter winner, technically. And, outside of like some other volatile fights, that one definitely sticks out to me as one that we probably going to have to roster.
Of course, if you do have any questions, leave those in chat. We will get to those as we do go on. Of course, if you leave a super chat, you will go right to the front of the line there. Punt place, John Castaneda. I mean, he's a guy that I found myself at. It got to a point, Pete, and when I was hand building lineups, I was like, I'm getting to way too much John Castaneda.
Yeah, I mean, I do like John Castaneda's skill set because I think that he can match Miles Johns on the feet. I think that he has some sneaky pop, some good volume. I think that he's probably the better Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner between the two. And I would say that Miles Johns is probably the better wrestler. Now it's going to come down to cardio in a high-paced division. I'm interested in John Castaneda just because like Steven Peterson's sitting there screaming at me as well. And I'd rather take a shot on John Castaneda, who, even in Kombache and regionally, he has some sneaky pop and some good just aggressiveness. And sometimes aggressiveness is all you need in the fight game to really just change the tone of the fight. Jason, I got a question for you. It's totally not DFS related at all.
Okay.
How many times do people have to come up to your front door and ask you about something and you politely decline before it's too much? We got solar panel guys coming around here left and right. And I don't know. You just saw me mute my mic, but this is like the 6th day in a row, and I'm like, my God,
I've got that security camera on.
Yeah,
so I just right when someone's at my front door, which really happens. I'm in a circular street. You have to have a reason to come in. I got cops who live on both sides of me.
Oh,
so
there you go.
A lot of people don't really come to my neighborhood. I go on that app. And I go, yep, not answering that door.
Yeah, I'm about to go on the Ring system and just start screaming at them through the app. But yeah, goodness. Apologize for the little interruption, but man, we got a good card ahead of us. We got a ton of people in here checking us out right now. I appreciate you. I know that Jason appreciates you guys. If you have questions, shoot them in chat and let's get those likes up over 100, please.
The other color code that I have here on my sheet is leverage plays. And there's 2 fighters that I put in a potential leverage spot. And one happens to be Miles John. I think everyone's looking at John Castaneda as kind of that under 8,000 play to potentially get to. So I think he's one. And I think Andre Barrios is the other potential leverage play today.
Yeah, so I would agree with you in saying that Miles Johns, if you're just looking at it black and white, looks like a leverage piece. And it's because it's ugly down at the bottom. So Castaneda will find his way into a lot of lineups, more so this week than others. I think that it's interesting. But Miles Johns in general just hasn't been the best DFS scorer. 64 points in a decision against Smith, 81 against Natividad, 87 against Dos Santos. And those previous 2 I just mentioned were scores in the 80s. So 3rd round finishes, like we always say, is somewhat of the worst possible outcomes that we can have. And that's always a fear that you have for any fighter, but main event fighters especially. There's 5 rounds to work with and always locking them into your lineups. And a 3rd round finish happens and they end up not becoming a part of the optimal lineup. The Marc-Andre Barrios fight, though, like that really surprises me that he's a leverage piece. Like I just completely expected the public to get behind Barrios. I know a lot of sharps are behind Barrios. I'm favoring Njokuani's length. And I just think that I don't know if a finish happens in this fight, but I feel like Njokuani can just outclass him on the feet as long as he minimizes the time he spent pushed up against the cage. All in general, though, like I didn't get to that fight as much as I wanted to be honest. I ended up getting to the basically Ultimate Fighter finale fight more so than that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's a key one. And of course, we're here to answer your question. We'll mention the very first question. Tony says, hey, am I crazy for thinking Battle should be the favorite? I mean, look, I think it's the power that Tresean Gore has. I was listening to his media scrum earlier this week, and he talked about, basically he walked into the Ultimate Fighter with a leg injury. And you know what? He pulled out of the finale, and he's like, hey, I had to get this one fixed. He believes he is going to get a knockout in the 1st or 2nd round. But I mean, look, I think if you were Brian Battle, and this was actually one of the more interesting things that Gore did say, this is a fight that nearly happened on the regional scene back in the day, that the fight just did not happen on Derek Brunson's promotion. But to me, it's about the power of Gore, of why he is the betting favorite heading into this one.
Yeah, so I'm favoring Trayshawn Gore, and it's just the power, man. When I saw Urbina hurt Battle on the feet and put him in some bad positions, immediately what I said is to myself is I think Gore would have finished him right here. I think this would have been Gore winning the Ultimate Fighter finale. Granted, MMA math doesn't work out like that, and it's going to be interesting because Gore's been on the shelf for a little bit. Inactivity is some of the worst things that can happen within MMA. Being under the lights, being accustomed and acclimated to the atmosphere, everything surrounding UFC competitions is extremely important in order to succeed. So Battle definitely has that edge going for him. He's already been there. He's accustomed. He seems chilled out, whereas Trayshawn Gore seemed a little animated and pumped up yesterday at the face-off. So with all that being said, I'm still favoring Trayshawn Gore. I know a lot of people, if you want to just look at under 8,000, I think that Brian Battle is probably one of the best guys. It's going to be a competitive fight for sure, but I'm favoring Gore.
Next up, Ryan says, for a FanDuel single entry GPP, who is your preferred MVP pick and why? I mean, look, I think if you're looking to kind of get a little different in terms of MVP, I think Alexis Davis is kind of a sneaky potential MVP spot, but really I'm looking at Bondor. I'm looking at Sean Strickland, and I'm looking at Rachmanov as MVPs I want to get to.
Yeah, I would agree and say that Bondar is probably number one for me. I just think it's a soft matchup. I think regionally he's fought soft competition, but you can basically say the same thing about Malcolm Gordon, and his durability hasn't been in question, whereas Malcolm Gordon gets hit, rocked, wobbled, even looks checked out as soon as the fight starts a lot of the time. He was able to bank a fight against Figueiredo, but I think that was largely due to the takedowns, the control time. And I'm not sure that he's the better wrestler or grappler in this situation. He's going up against a guy who's extremely aggressive. So it's Bondar is like a no-brainer for me. He might not end up being the most productive DFS player today, but I think he's going to be within the top three.
Yeah. Next up, Alex says chances on Trezano winning and being optimal. I don't love that fight from a GPP perspective.
I was trying to convince myself with it, Jason. I'm sitting there and I'm watching Hakeem Dawodu tape, and I'm like, good striker, good hands. The volume sometimes isn't the best. The takedown defense isn't the best. Granted, it's against, strong competition. Then I'm looking at Trezano. I'm like, all right, does Trezano represent a takedown threat? Not really. I think that he can. I think this is going to play out on the feet. I think it's going to be a back and forth affair. And both guys are known for being in very close competitive fights that get stretched out over 15 minutes, lots of split decisions, lots of close decisions. So for me, it's a fight that I would probably label as a leverage fight either side, because I feel like everybody's kind of done this tail of the tape, looked down on it and said, I don't really want to get to this fight. It's a division where fights tend to go the distance more often than not. And you have two guys who aren't the most potent finishers. So, I mean, I'm staying away from it. I would recommend staying away from it. But if you just want to look at it for the facts, the ownership's probably going to be a little too light on it.
Corey, I appreciate your super chat. He says, if 10 fights, how many times do you think Harris would beat Rachmanov? And are you confident? Are y'all with Dawodu? I'll on Dawodu, I like him as a cash play. But the problem is he's not shown to be that fancy producer you want. I mean, look, we're talking about, if you're trying to get to 650, 700 points on DraftKings. Let's just be honest about it. I just don't know if Dawodu, decision, I don't think he can get to 100 points. He's got to get a stoppage, and I just don't know if that happens.
Yeah, I mean, if a finish were to happen, I think in my mind, I would say that it happens on the Dawodu side just because he's got power. But I mean, even in cash, right? Like you're going to need more than just like 60, 70 points to really, ensure. It's not like he's super cheap, Jason. He's 8,500, it's not like if he was 8,000 or whatever, then maybe we can make that work. And Corey, thanks again for your super chat. And he says, how many times do you think Harris can beat Rachmanov? I actually watched some more tape on Rachmanov last night, and there was a fight of his where he got absolutely rocked, and he was nearly out in that fight and ended up turning the tide and, just showing great adversity, dealing with adversity, and came back and won it. Harris hits hard. Harris has even skills with him. I would probably say it's like a 3 to 4 out of, I'd probably say 3 out of 10 times, because I do think that Rachmanov is the real deal. But you got two fighters that are, it's like a mirror image. So I want to see how these guys handle each other. Both have some questions regarding them as far as the fight gets stretched out. But yeah, I think Rachmanov wins 7 out of 10 times.
And you made a great point to me before the show. When we're talking about the fighters that are in the 6K and 7K range, outside of Jack Hermansson, is Carlton Harris the most talented?
Yeah, so I like doing this, Jason, and you and I kind of always go back and forth, and it's like, all right, forget what the salary. Well, take all the fighters that are under 8,000 and rank them by skill, because sometimes skill wins. And I would say Jack Hermansson is at the top of that list. He's extremely skilled. I would say Carlton Harris is probably number 2, man. Like under 8,000 is ugly. And then number 3, like that's where it starts to get interesting. It's like, all right, who's the 3rd most skilled fighter under 8,000? Is it Maximov? Is it Jason Witt? It's kind of like a tie.
Yeah. I mean, my thing about Maximov, and I am getting to Maximov today, is my concern is more about some cardio issues, and also what happens if he can't make this a grappling matchup and it has to be on the feet. If this is a fight you tell me plays out on the feet, to me it is advantage Punahele Soriano in this matchup. But if you tell me this one goes on the ground, yeah, no question, it is advantage Nick Maximov.
I'm just so worried about Puna Soriano's cardio. Like in all fights, when I went back and I watched it, like it might just be how he is. Some fighters look more tired than they really are. He's like, mouth open, constantly breathing heavy. I thought he was in a winnable spot against Brendan Allen. Brendan Allen just, really had a great game plan. Stay on the outside, out kickbox him, avoid the big shots best you can. I want to see how his cardio checks out in a fight where he's going to have to defend takedowns. Maximov shot 15 times in his previous bout, and that work rate can really zap the energy out of anybody's. I know that Puna Soriano's got great minds surrounding him. Eric Nixick's probably got great training partners going through the same exact thing, so that history does not repeat itself and that he does not end up just being completely out of shape for this fight. So I'm picking Puna Soriano against a guy that I don't really know how he can fare on the feet. And I think that his defensive wrestling can avoid some bad positions. But I tell you what, man, I got questions regarding his cardio. It's a pure live betting spot. And like I play DFS a lot, but I'll tell you what, now that betting is legalized in Connecticut, betting on fights in general, I think is a lot easier. And there's money to be made in regards to live betting. So definitely, pick and choose what you do, have fun with both, and good luck to everybody.
I'm just going to say this. I don't think Soriano misses a bench press day.
Bro, I'll tell you what, though. I mean, he looks good. He's got, big lats as well. He's got wings. But I almost feel like he did more cardio this time. Like you can tell when a guy's inflated, and he's been inflated in the past and he's looked somewhat like a bodybuilder. He looked a little, leaner this time around. And that could definitely be, all right, we need to hit the cardio harder this camp, because you got all the skills, man. He really does. He's got crazy power.
Of course, when you want to get access to all the great premium data and tools we have over at Awesemo.com, you got to sign up for our Awesemo Weekly Pass, which is for $29.95. That gives you access to all the great data and tools we have over at Awesemo.com, including player projections, ownership projections, lineup builder, and so much more. And if you just want a Awesemo MMA Pass, you can get that as low as $2.95 weekly. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. Of course, one thing we always tell you, got to add on Fantasy Cruncher, which I have been on that Fantasy Cruncher all day long, coming up with lineups for 150 max, 20 max, and et cetera, because hand building is a tough option here today, especially when you're talking, as we've talked about that, whether we're talking on DraftKings or FanDuel. I mean, it's like if you go with the FanDuel, that 14 and under, who do you really want to get to? Or that DraftKings, that under 8,000. Of course, if you do have any questions, be sure to line those up, whether you leave them here on YouTube or over our Discord chat as well. Of course, we'll be in there as well throughout the fights. Lance asked any late scratches. As of right now, there has not been anything. So we'll, if anything does break, we'll have it to you here before we get, of course, Lock here has come up here at the top of the hour. Of course, UFC Vegas right there, the Apex, smaller cage. So I think that's something to mention there. Not that big cage, will be the big cage next week there in Houston at the Toyota Center. So something to think about there. Of course, if you do got any questions, be sure to line that up. Samuel says he needs Pete's reaction to his over-under number of 6.5.
I think it's a fair one, buddy. He's getting better. I'm saying over. I think it's going to be a sneaky, like crazy night. Finishes. I mean, he's kind of like right on. I think it's like seven, maybe 8.
Brand asking Soriano or Davis on FanDuel. I would say I would I'm more comfortable in going the Davis route as opposed to Soriano, but Soriano potentially could have a little bit of a higher ceiling if Davis doesn't go the takedown route.
Yeah, if Davis doesn't go the takedown route, I'm not really sure how high she scores. I listened to several interviews of hers, and she's talking about how she really wants to get a finish this fight, and all fighters want to get a finish, and some are just happy to win. But Alexis Davis saying that she needs to really, you know, put a stamp on this fight and find a finish any way she can. And I like hearing that, especially at that price range. I think that she definitely could be within the top 5 fighters this week.
That could be a situation. She's at the end of her contract, and she knows
she's
something special.
That's where the mind of Jason comes in, because he's extremely intelligent with it. It's her final fight on her contract. She mentioned that as well. So that's the guy right there. Jason knows what's up.
Yeah, there's some people that a lot of guys don't like to talk about that.
Yeah,
publicly. Privately is a different story.
Yeah.
Privately is a much different story. Matt says, any fights this card that you consider stackable in GPPs. So, I mean, obviously the main event's always gonna be a fight you look at, but look, it is a clash of styles. I think if I was going to paint a picture of how it could work, Pete, I think you got to be thinking that it's going all 5 rounds. It's a 48-47 type decision win for either one of them.
Right.
And where you're going to need Jack Hermansson to be in the rounds that he wins to just rack up takedowns and in control time. I just don't think that happens.
Yeah. I don't think a stack will be a part of my, lineups this week. I can see getting to it because it's just like, next best guy in, and Hermansson's one of the most talented underdogs, if not the most talented on the slate. So yeah, it's a no stack for me this week.
Anthony says Soriano or Dawoodu in a single entry on DraftKings. That would be I would go Soriano in that.
Same, Soriano for me.
And it's just from fantasy perspective of Soriano's ceiling to me is just so much higher.
Mm-hmm.
Dawoodu, I mean, look, a very talented striker, but just you mentioned this, like if you relate this like the NBA, you could sit there and say this guy is a great basketball player, but maybe just doesn't produce from a fancy aspect. To me, that's Hakeem Dawoodu.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's a great comparison because skill set wise, he's a good guy. He's good. He's going to be a guy that not many people want to take a fight against because he's a tough out every single time. But for DFS, we need finishes. We need grapplers. Outside of that, you're really not going to make it into a lot of our lineups.
Christopher says, do you think it's worth to fade Gore versus Battle overall? That's a big NO for me.
Say that again.
Do you think it's worth it to fade Gore versus Battle?
It's a no for me as well.
Yeah. Next up, Witt or Maximov single entry DraftKings GPP.
Good Lord. Well, I have a lot of faith in Puna Soriano's team. You saw what they did to Francis Ngannou and how all the fighters coming out of Extreme Couture.
Why are you hating Nick Diaz Academy?
I don't, but like I watched some like behind the scenes stuff and the whole team smoking weed and like they show up in shape. They're training at Ruka half the time. They're boxing a lot. They're grappling a lot. I don't know, man. It's a fight camp for sure, but I like the professional atmosphere of Extreme Couture. So I will say that volatility aside, I like Jason Witt a little bit more than Maximov.
I think the higher ceiling is on the Witt side of the equation.
Yeah.
But the one concern you have with Jason Witt heading into this one is if he's not able to utilize his wrestling because of that massive reach disadvantage he has in this matchup of 10 inches. I mean, all you gotta do is look at that stare down from yesterday to see the difference that's in there. But also the fact of, if he is able to score takedowns, he has to be careful on the mat because Phil Rowe is talented on the ground.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not worried about Rowe's submission offense. To be honest, I think that Witt would just hit him with some smash passes and good ground and pound and possibly even submit him out of there. But it's more of a decision. And the longer the fight goes, the worse it's going to be for Witt. He needs to avoid getting hit with a shot for 15 minutes. That's how bad his chin is. And that Brian Barberena fight really, really showed that, where he was winning that fight in pretty dominant fashion and then was nearly finished at points as well. So extremely liable to get knocked out.
Daniel says, does Brendan Allen worry you even just a little bit given short notice, etc.? Plus Allen needs a win. Now, something we should note, this fight is at 205 pounds, not 185 pounds. So I think that's something to note there. The one thing that, look, I said this line on Thursday and, it's a joke. Friends don't let friends let them put Sam Alvey in their DFS lineup. Because look, if you're putting Sam Alvey your DFS lineup, you're hoping for that one punch to land because he's just not a volume puncher. And literally the fence is his back's best friend because they just hang out all together.
Yeah, that's true. There was a time where Mr. Sam Alvey was racking up first round knockouts. It was in 2014. He scored 93 points.
Bro, that's 8 years ago.
I know it is. Ferreira, 102 points. Kelly, 128 points. Casey, second round knockout, 117. Pragnio, 2018. Okay, we got that. 123 points. Now, in a situation like that, his opponent needs to be reckless. And they need to recklessly come forward, get a little too over aggressive, and then they get slept. I know that Brendan Allen's taking this on short notice, and I know that he really didn't look the best at weigh-ins. So I'm going to say that Alvey's worth a shot in a few lineups, like a very minimal amount. I would much rather get to Danilo Marquez just from a decision standpoint, because I do think that Smiling Sam puts his back against the cage, as you mentioned. Low volume guy, counter striker, has no eagerness at all, no desire to go out there and finish the fight and be aggressive. But there are a lot of questions. I can see why people, down at the bottom saying, hey, dude, I just need him to land one shot against a guy who has been knocked out, coming off a knockout loss pretty soon. So it's not a no for me, but it's a extremely minimal amount.
Crazy thing is, Brendan Allen arrives in Vegas on Wednesday at 11:30, talking to the media at 1 o'clock. He literally goes, I don't know what day it is.
Yeah, that's the problem about taking fights, right? You take a fight on such short notice, you have a lot of requirements and a lot of things are going to be asked about you, and it's physically draining. In general, when you have a fight and you're dealing with fight week, whether it's Bellator or UFC or whatnot, there's a lot demanded upon you. Never mind when you're coming in and, everything's in expedited fashion.
Of course, this is the Awesemo MMA Live 4 Lock Show. We are sponsored by Prize Picks. And of course, over at Prize Picks, get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum when you sign up, deposit, and play over at Prize Picks. Of course, be sure to use that promo code Awesemo when you make your first deposit, as I got a match bonus for you there. And Pete, I mentioned I was on it earlier today, and I'm looking at Fight Time, and there was a fighter they added on Fight Time that stuck out to me. Phil Rowe. 9 minutes. Give me the under.
Ooh, yeah, I like that. That's an under for me.
The other one that stuck out to me was Trayshawn Gore, 12.5. I like the under on that one too.
I think he knocks him out. So, I might have just blinders on, but I like that as well.
And then the takedowns, there was one that kind of intrigued me a little bit.
Yep.
Marc-Andre Barrios at 0.5.
Yeah, I think that's more.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, man, give me the over on that one.
I would go right now and I would smash that prop right now. I'm telling you, before they change that, I think he's going to get at least one. And I think that, Chidi Njokuani has solid takedown defense. I'd say mediocre, not solid. He has solid Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but he can get back to his feet. But one takedown, one takedown's really not a lot in an MMA fight.
Yeah, you got to take advantage there over at Prize Picks. Of course, as we mentioned, get 1 month free of Awesemo Plus Platinum when you sign up, make a deposit, and play over at Prize Picks. You will receive an email within 24 to 48 hours to redeem your free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. By the way, speaking of Awesemo here, I'll be back tomorrow afternoon for our first NASCAR show of the year.
Oh my God.
Chris Pinnell is back. So me and him will be doing Awesemo's NASCAR live before a lock show. So you guys stay tuned to that, Pete. I know. Pete, just tell me who's in your line.
I was just gonna say that for the listeners that do not know, I will be tuning in as I tune into all of Jason's NASCAR shows. And whoever the hell I'm rostering as far as drivers, they're going to be out, broken engine, crash, whatever. They're just going to be completely destroyed. So I'll make sure to put my picks into chat and you guys just maneuver around them.
Yeah, I saw a cool time-lapse video because it's there at the LA Coliseum where they built this track, and it was a time-lapse video of basically how the LA Coliseum looked and as it transformed into the track that'll be there tomorrow. So of course we'll be on 4:00 Eastern time tomorrow, so be sure to check us out there. Rob says new to UFC DFS, what's the basic rule of thumb when building lineups as in roster construction? For me, what I'm doing when I'm hand building a lineup, I'm saying who am I building my lineup around? So usually it's someone in that 8,800 and above on DraftKings. And then typically I'm like, okay, who is that under 7,500 and under fighter I'm trying to get to? And then I kind of build my construction from there.
Yeah. So Rob, thanks for tuning into the show, man. And thanks for the question, and welcome to UFC MMA DFS. How I like to start things is finding my two staples. I want to find my 1-2 punch, so to speak. Who is one of my most confident plays on the slate, and behind that, who is like my second most confident play on the slate. And it can be salary aside, but usually above 8,500, you want to find 1 to 2 of those guys that you want to back and get in your lineups. Next is locating the fight around the 8,200, 8,000, or 8,300, 7,900, something around that mid-range, where you know it's going to be that salary alone allows you a ton of flexibility, and more often than not does make it into the optimal lineup. And then for me, my 4 through 6 fighters is where I start dumpster diving or locating my value. Locating value is probably some of the toughest. Not value as far as like a skill set wise, but how many times can they actually come through and be productive for your lineups?
Next question comes in about the matchup of Julian Erosa and Steven Peterson, asking about Pedro asked about thoughts on Julian Erosa inside the distance. Pete, so I was looking at the props on this matchup, and you know what the prop that stuck out to me was Julian Erosa wins by submission, which is plus 450.
I was trying to convince myself that Julian Erosa is that 9,000 guy we're not talking about. I was doing that earlier today, and I'm like, all right, like we got a ton of love for Jailton Almeida. Yeah, I get it. Brendan Allen. I think for most people, they're going to be a little hesitant about that. Denise Bondar and Rakhmonov are kind of like the 1-2. Erosa's that guy that a lot of people don't have trust in, but they think that he's going to win this fight. And he definitely has finishing ability, even striking wise. I mean, KOs, but it's his Darce chokes, his anaconda chokes that are extremely sneaky. And you would imagine a guy in Steven Peterson would like to take this to, this fight to the ground as much as possible. And in doing so, you leave your neck exposed. And next thing you know, Juicy J, Julian Erosa, captures another submission win. So I would play that light, but I don't hate it as far as a prop bet.
Yeah. Other prop bets that just kind of stuck out to me. I know someone asked about a long shot prop. I'm Hermansson via submission plus 500, Strickland via TKO KO plus 215, Brennan Allen via decision plus 175, Gore by TKO KO plus 200.
Yeah, I like those, man. And I also like on, say, like DraftKings, you can do like double chance. So like Denise Bondar, whether it's via submission or KO, so basically inside the distance. I like targeting that. If I think that whether he knocks him out or finishes Malcolm Gordon, a finish happens, and Denise Bondar is going to end up being the victor. So, just locating value as far as betting lines. And I like how when you take a betting line, you say, all right, well, this guy's priced that he's only going to win 1 out of 10 times. And I actually think his probability is more towards a 3 or 4 out of 10 times. So I'm going to dabble a little bit in hopes that he can, outperform the public's, expectations. And that's how you be profitable in MMA, man. And I cannot wait for the fights to start today.
Gary wants to know, do we got a Pete the Heat parlay you want to throw out there?
Ooh, Pete the Heat parlay. Yeah, give me a second. I'll formulate one.
We'll get while you formulate that together here. We'll throw it out there. Ryan asked about FanDuel single entry, about my favorite MVP and why. I would say Strickland definitely sticks out to me. Volume that he can land out there. Bondar's another one. Davis is another one. If you're looking to really get different, I think you just got to look at who potentially could go the takedown route in this matchup. Rachmanov, maybe someone to potentially look there in terms of that one.
So I actually grabbed this parlay that I like a lot, and it starts with Denise Bondar. Whether you're taking him money line sits at about -300 right now. So a lot of money coming in on Bondar for good reason. Paired him up with Alexis Davis, Sean Strickland, who I really like, even though I have concerns about, Hermansson, wearing him down eventually, and Trey Gore. So you got those 4, Bondar, Davis, Gore, Strickland. Hit you with +375. Nothing spectacular. There's no dog in that, but I do think that as far as this card, it's kind of like locating some of these safer picks.
Next up, saying odds that Steven Peterson knocks out Julian Erosa. I mean, look, if there's always been a knock on Julian Erosa, it has been his chin, but the chin has held up in his past couple of matchups.
It has, man. And like when I go back and I'm always trying to find the edge for our listeners and our users. And I'm sitting there and I'm trying to watch Steven Peterson. I'm watching him shadow box. I'm like, dear God, your hands suck. But if he could his aggressiveness alone can expose a bad chin, but his technical ability is not on the same level that Julian Erosa's is. And despite getting finished multiple times throughout his career, I think that Juicy J is just the better fighter here. A Steven Peterson finish wouldn't surprise me if he threw something reckless, but it's not going to probably be a skilled finish.
Cody says Witt going to take down City. I mean, look, if Witt's going to win, it's via takedowns. No question about it. Next up, best $15 play over on FanDuel. So we have 2 $15 plays, Jason Witt and Chidi Njokuani. I feel Njokuani is the safer route, but Witt's, I mean, look, Jason Witt, boom bust play of the card.
Agree. Boom bust. And that is how you need to think of MMA DFS is volatility can work in your favor or against you. And as long as you set your exposures correct and you get a little bit more over the field in some spots, you're going to be profitable. And Jason Witt's a guy, you just close your eyes, you put him in some of your lineups and you hope for the best.
Eddie, I appreciate your super chat there. He says best 2 values on DraftKings GPP and best 2 payups. So like for me, the payups I think is Rachmanov and Bondar. In terms of value plays, I mean, look, Gore 8,300. I mean, that's I like the price point there.
How are we defining value? As skill or as in going to pull off the victory?
I think I'm looking skill, price point, and can they pull off the victory?
So
it's kind of it's a mathematical equation, Pete.
Okay. All right.
I don't know how good you are with math. I know you're good throwing punches,
pretty good
kicks.
Pretty good. My brother's ahead of the math department for high school, so I'm pretty good at math.
Really?
Yeah. I'm going to say that my 2 spend ups are Denise Bondar and Sean Strickland. Strickland's kind of like right on that fine line of being a spend up at 8,800. I think he qualifies. And as far as best values on the slate, I think Jack Hermansson, even though I just said that I like Sean Strickland, it just comes down to this is the top of the division. This is like number 5 against number 7 or whatever the hell these guys are ranked. It's extremely talented, and this is going to be a competitive fight. Outside of that, I would probably say Carlton Harris is the next best skilled guy, and he sits at 7,200. But it's a shame that they paired up 2 really skilled, really talented fighters against each other, and they're going to cannibalize each other, and one person is going to get derailed and possibly their career altered after this fight. And it's sad to see because I think they both can have plenty of success within the UFC.
Of course, this is the Awesemo MMA Live Before Lock show. We'll be live here for the next 15 minutes as we get ready for UFC Vegas number 47. Of course, if you do got any questions, be sure to line those up. Of course, if you want to send us a super chat, we missed that as well. Corey, appreciate you in the super chat there. He says, I'm not hearing y'all talking about Almeida. Of course, Almeida, the high price option here.
Yeah.
UFC debut here for him. So what God,
there's a lot of love for Almeida.
Yeah.
A lot of love for him. But my question to those people is predicting a submission finish against a guy who's trained under Damian Maia for an extensive amount of time. And I do know that Danilo Marquez did just lose via submission in overtime in a grappling bout. But you have to understand that those positions and in those matches in overtime, they give the guy your back and you have to defend out of one of the worst positions ever. So submissions are going to happen. It's the name of the game. I think that MMA, Jailton Almeida has tons of potential. As long as that cardio checks out outside of 1.5 rounds, he implements more control and more ground and pound rather than trying to submit a black belt, just punch a black belt several times. And next thing you know, they turn into a brown belt and a purple belt and so on and so forth. So, utilize heavy top pressure, definitely has incredible potential. It's just a matter of a price point, like 9,400 for a guy making his debut in not the softest matchup. It's not a guy that has just Achilles heel is grappling. That's what Marquez does. So it's a slightly underweight approach to Jailton Almeida. I'll let other people chase the potential. I think there's plenty of it going forward.
Saw a great question a little while ago. I forget who sent it in here, but I thought it was an amazing question. Last man in, Trey Gore or Phil Rowe?
Ooh, it's a damn good one. I feel like I made a lot of knockout lineups. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I make a lot of grappling lineups, and this week felt like I got to a lot of guys with knockout potential. And Rowe and Gore, man, it's kind of like a 1A, 1B for me. I'm going to say that Gore, I might like Gore more than Rowe because I don't have too many questions surrounding him. I got tons of questions surrounding Rowe's grappling, as much as how crazy that matchup with Jason Witt's going to be.
From a DraftKings perspective, if I said Phil Rowe has the best chance to get that 25 bonus points for a win in 60 seconds, true or false?
That's a damn good one, Jason. That's why locating that Francis Ngannou quick bonus. I think you're right, man. Like we've seen Jason Witt get just completely flattened within under a minute. And I definitely think it can happen again against a guy who has literally like a broomstick for arms. He's just going to hit you across the cage with that crazy reach advantage.
There was a question directed towards you of who has the best chance for a first round knockout, not named Strickland. Look, I don't think Strickland gets a knockout in the first round.
First round? No, I think it's more of a damage and accumulation of shots.
Yeah. Joshua asking about the Francis contract situation. Look, Francis will be under contract with the UFC till the end of this year.
Yes.
He's not going to take another fight. He's going to get knee surgery next month. It's going to put him out to all the end of the year. He'll be a free agent in January. We'll see what happens. Yeah. I would be relatively surprised if you see Francis Ngannou sign a new contract with the UFC this year.
Yeah, I mean, what a lot of people don't realize is, and how you and I have talked about it, is in championship fights, about how you get extended. You know what I mean? Like having success at a point is a little detrimental if you want out of a deal. And that's why you have seen some people just their careers fall apart because they just want out of a situation.
The contract situation that no one's talking about of a champions clause, Pete, you know who that is?
Who?
AJ Mckee.
Ooh, good comparison.
AJ Mckee was heading into his last fight on his deal against Patricio Pitbull.
Well, I'll tell you,
extended his contract by 3 fights.
That's the champion clause. People don't understand, and everybody that just it tries to ignore that, it's extend you. And we'll see, man. Who knows what's going to go on with Francis Ngannou, but that's just an odd situation.
Yeah, very, very much so in terms of that. Let's get some other questions. Thoughts on Andre Barrios for a single entry?
Has the UFC experience here, has the UFC experience, has the grappling advantage in this bout, needs to close the gap, needs to pin Chidi Njokuani against the cage and try to either submit him or TKO him on the mat. I think standing up in the clinch, it's going to be Chidi's night, and that length is going to, pay dividends for him. So I don't hate it as far as a single entry, but I'm favoring Chidi Njokuani. It could be the striker in me, but I feel like a lot of sharp people are kind of going to be locating that Marc-Andre Barrios side.
Of course, one of the things that Pete and I love to see after the fights are over are those winning screenshots. And we want to see someone go into the Awesemo Hall of Fame tonight. Of course, what you got to be doing is download the Awesemo avatar, be rocking that on your DFS profile, place in the top 3 of a contest with over 5,000 contestants. Tweet your wins at Awesemo HOF. You win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Only one free month can be awarded to a user per calendar year. Congratulations to Tyler, taking down first place there, win $100,000.
Damn.
Have a good account, bro. Have a good account. Save some of that money for the tax man, because he's going to come calling. Andy taking down second place there in an NBA contest, win $250. Also, 8Game taking down third in NBA contest. He won $1,750. Also, we had another first place winner there in NBA of Praz taking down 1,500 as well. Also, we had some NHL winning lineups come in. Kyle taking down second, winning $1,000 on DraftKings, and Casey, who we see over there in Discord chat, taking down second, winning $750. So congratulations to you. Of course, we want to see those winning lineups here tonight for UFC Vegas number 47. Of course, we'll try to get as many questions as we possibly can here, as we're starting to kind of wrap things up here. Under 10 minutes here left.
What the hell is going on in the chat today? Oh, shout out to all the people working for Awesemo. I appreciate everybody, tuning in and engaging in chat for us.
I appreciate Team Awesemo monitoring the chat for us, because as I scroll down, I see certain things.
Yeah, goodness gracious, what is going on? Y'all sipping something a little early today.
We'll try to get a little fast response here on these questions. Dowdu or Rowe DraftKings? That's a full row for me.
Rowe.
Can Maximov get the fight to the ground with a lot of takedowns and ground and pound? That's how he's going to win the fight to me.
He needs to.
Of course, you got to remember Maximov, when he fought in the Contender Series, because his opponent pulled out, ended up taking a heavyweight matchup, and the guy had like 50 pounds on him. It was crazy.
Crazy, man.
Look, I just questions about Alvey. It's a puncher's chance in terms of DFS.
How bad, if Sam Alvey wins, I'm ordering you a Sam Alvey t-shirt and you have to wear it next stream. Just a smiling Sam right on your t-shirt.
No, he's got to win plus get at least 80 points.
Okay. Is that what we're going to do?
Because I'm going to tell you right now, Sam Alvey could win a lackluster decision and get you 62 points.
Okay. So Sam Alvey wins and gets over 80 points. We're ordering Jason a Smiling Sam t-shirt. How's that?
Yeah. Dakota says got one spot left, single entry, Barrios or Njokuani. I would lean Njokuani.
Yeah, man. I think Njokuani's got a sneaky type of finishing ability.
Yeah. Of course, be sure to hit that like button. Of course, subscribe also right here on YouTube. Of course, NBA Deeper Dive coming up here in an hour from now. Those guys will get you ready for tonight's NBA slate. So be sure to check that out. As I'll be tuning in, because I need a little help on the NBA lineups tonight.
Yes, sir.
NBA DFS is not easy, bro.
Bro, I'm playing tonight. Yeah, y'all better watch out. I'm playing tonight. I can't wait to tune into our guys. We got some of the best guys between Eric, Adam, everybody. Josh, everybody. It's just such a beneficial channel to be a part of. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Hit that like button for us. Only got a couple minutes, and then it's fight time, baby.
Any shots on Storalenko?
I have one. I hate it though. She needs to get takedowns and control.
Favorite underdog today and favorite play on the card?
Favorite play on the card, Denise Bondar. Favorite underdog, Castaneda.
Great line here from Alves. Rowe says a favorite scares me.
Facts.
Cheaty or battle on DraftKings?
Cheaty, baby. Cheaty, bang, bang. That's what we're going with.
Already says, so is Bondera a lock? I would not use, and we all know Pete does not like that word.
Bro, I might say it. I might not, but the reason you don't lock anybody in is because they may not be in an optimal lineup. They may, I think to win, he's a lock to win, but I don't know if he's going to be an optimal lock.
Yeah, no question. Yeah, I rarely lock a fighter. I've done it plenty of times and it's worked out. Plenty of times it hasn't. Yeah, when it doesn't work out, that's the oh crap moment.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Try to get some other questions in here. Njokuani Trezano on FanDuel for last spot.
Njokuani for me.
Does this path? Does Maxwell have a path of victory? To me, it's takedowns using his grappling.
Yeah,
I think that's really the best way to put it. That one. Is Marquez a good cheap play?
10%, maybe 5%.
Let's see here. Scroll down, try to get some other questions in here.
Got a lot of people talking in chat, man. We appreciate you guys.
Yeah, Oz says Alvey doesn't need a KO to put you in a good spot. I mean, I understand that. I understand that because of the price point there. Yeah. But the problem, like I pointed out on Thursday, his last win against John Vellante, he only landed 53 strikes.
Yeah, so
he did have it. Now he did have a knockdown that fight, which obviously helps out a lot. But to me, like when you're putting Sam Alvey in your lineup, you have to go into understanding he's not a volume puncher. He's a counter striker. And he is going to live with his back against the fence.
Yeah. And what you also need is you also need a lot of these other underdogs to fail, right? Whereas even that 50, 60 point win is enough to get you a part of that optimal lineup by having the correct combination.
Rachmanov or Rosa last piece on DraftKings?
Rachmanov.
Yeah, I would go Rachmanov in that one as well. That's kind of where I stand there. Of course, appreciate everyone that's tuned in here to the Awesemo MMA Live Before Lock show. Of course, myself and Pete will be back next Thursday, UFC 271. I had to think what number was. The reason I knew it was 271 because yesterday I did an interview with Dustin Jacoby, and he's on UFC 272 in March.
Yeah, it's a good fight, man. I can't wait for next week.
Yeah, looking forward to that one. Of course, as you leave, be sure to smash that like button. Of course, keep it locked here at Awesemo. NBA Deeper Dive coming up here in 1 hour from now. So, guys, will get you ready for tonight's NBA slate. Thanks for everyone tuning in. We will talk to you on Thursday for the strategy show. Have a good day, everybody.